Hey, so in this demonstration I'm going to show you how to configure ADFS out of the box with extended protection check to ensure that Kerberos single sign-on works for Windows, and then we'll talk about what it means for other operating systems. So just very briefly, I'm logged into a Windows 10 workstation. It's part of my, my Active Directory on-premise. Got an ADFS server running on 2012 R2, so it's ADFS 3. And let's go ahead and launch a browser. And I'm going to do an ADFS IDP initiated sign-on. Really, I just want to get to my ADFS server and I want to sign into the site. And hopefully what I'd expect to get is a Kerberos authentication and sign in. However, because of the way that it's configured, I'm getting prompted to sign in and send my credentials, which isn't really what we want. So let's have a look and see if there's anything we can do to understand this. So I'm going in extended protection mode enabled here, and if we look at the sites, I've got my ADFS server, and even if I put in start.welshgeek.net in here, it doesn't make any difference to signing in to the server here, because it's still prompting me. And if we notice, it's because the host name here, even though I can get a Kerberos ticket, doesn't like the ticket that's being presented to it. So if we come onto our workstation, we do a K-list, we can see that the workstation retrieved a Kerberos ticket for the server. But really what we want this Kerberos ticket to be is the service principal name for the ADFS server. So let's go along and take a look at my ADFS server configuration. And what we've got here is the ADFS server display name is ADFS, the host name is adfs.welshgeek.net, and the extended protection check is, I've set it to require. Now default out of the box is allow. Allow means if the client supports extended token protection check, then it'll support it. If it doesn't, so Safari on a Mac, for example, then it'll bypass the protected check. So I'm going to show you kind of how that looks in a second. The other thing that's interesting is this WIA supported user agents. The user agents for which, if ADFS sees a user agent that matches one of these, it'll send it a authenticate negotiator or authenticate NTLM response. Otherwise, it'll do the fallback to forms-based authentication or whatever. So let's go and have a look on the domain controller and see how this looks. So I've got a couple of plugins here on my console. The first thing we're interested in is the way the ADFS server is configured from a DNS perspective. Here I've got it as a CNAME, the CNAME for my internal ADFS server, and I've got a pointer record for the reverse lookup. I don't like that, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete the pointer record. I'm going to come into the domain and I'm going to delete the ADFS record. And what I'm then going to do is I'm going to create that as a host. So an A record, so adfs.welshgeek.net 192.168.1.4 is my actual host. So it's the same IP address as the ADFS server, and I want to make the ADFS internal, but instead of it being an A record, it is now, instead of it being a C record, it's now an A record. And if we come in here and refresh the pointer record, the pointer record goes to adfs.welshgeek.net. So that's really important that the lookup occurs that way. The other thing we're interested in is the actual server that it's running on, the ADFS internal server. And the service principal names that come along with this. So it'll automatically create host entries for this. This is important for the managed service account that's going to run with it. But we don't want any HTTP records in here. This will cause further problems with the Kerberos tickets being issued. So that's all looking good. The other thing that's important up here, just a bit further down here, the DNS host name, which matches the host in the service principal name. So make sure that that's not the DNS name that we're actually going to send people to for the ADFS request. Under the managed service account here, so the managed service account is the service, the user account effectively, that doesn't have a password, that the service runs on the ADFS servers, because obviously you might have multiple servers, might be behind a load balancer, might be in a DNS round robin, but the host name that these things resolve to. And so we've got two service principal names here: host entry for adfs-welshgeek.net and HTTP entry for adfs-welshgeek.net. So those two must be there for the service to run as, to get the Kerberos ticket for that. And we need to make sure that the machine accounts are properly defined, and we know which DNS entry, and we also know which servers it's going to run on. So that's all fine, and so we've made those configuration changes. So what we're just going to do, net stop ADFS SRV, which is the ADFS service. Give that a little while to run, and then we'll net start ADFS SRV and restart it. Okay, so let's come back to our desktop now. What we'll do is we'll do a klist purge, and we'll do a ipconfig flush DNS. And whilst I'm at it, I'm just going to come over here and I'm going to clear the cache here. We'll just scavenge cell resource record to make sure that there's nothing untoward running in the background. So back up to my desktop here. Let's shut down Internet Explorer, make sure it's not running, and we'll relaunch it. And we'll browse to that IDP initiated sign-on page. So sign into this web page, sign in, and transparent single sign-on. If we look at the Kerberos ticket here now, it's actually changed from the CNAME record that was and the service principal name for which the Kerberos ticket is issued is now matching the host entry for the service principal name on the managed service account, rather than the entry that was present both in a DNS perspective, but also on the that actually matched the service principal name on the computer record. So that's all working, and you know, from a Internet Explorer perspective, we know that you know, enable protected mode is here. The sites that are configured here, we can even remove that star.welshgeek.net from there, because we're only really interested in issuing tickets to certain hosts. So if we sign out from this, let's close that browser down. We'll just do a klist purge, ipconfig flush DNS, and just redo that, so you can see that the sign in works just for that one page. And then if we look at this and we do properties on the page, we can see that it's in the local intranet mode, protected mode is on, and the IDP initiated sign-on worked. Fantastic. So what does that mean from a Zscaler perspective? Well, let's go ahead and launch the Zscaler app. It'll start up over here in a second. Here we go. It's going to pop into the foreground. So, you know, I can obviously automate this and get rid of the prompt here. But welshgeek.net. I select. Oh, wrong cloud. Wrong cloud. selected the wrong cloud, but it still did the sign-in process. Let's just sign out of that and redo it. As a Zscaler technical, I have access on all the clouds. mryan@welshgeek.net, and I want to sign into the Zscaler 2 cloud. So all of this sign-in will be transparent. I get no pop-ups asking me for credentials, and of course the Kerberos ticket has come up over here. Fantastic. So I've got requiring extended protection checking configured on my ADFS server. I've got I've got the intranet mode configured on my browser, and I've even got protected mode enabled here. The key things really are to make sure that that this site is an intranet zone, that we will send automatically log-on credentials for that site. So, okay, all well and good, but how does that then look if we go ahead and we do it on a Mac? So let's do this. So let's do a klist on here. Kdestroy. Let's say klist. So I've got no Kerberos tickets. Kinit mryan@welshgeek.net. A couple of ways to get the Kerberos tickets onto the machine. So let's go ahead and launch Firefox. Before I do anything, let's go to about:config and check the negotiate. So a similar kind of configuration, adfs.welshgeek.net, are two hosts that we will automatically send username and password to. So let's go to the IDP initiated sign-on page and click sign in. And I automatically get prompted for a password. And if we look at this content and refresh this page, and click cancel on that, we can see that that page resulted in the 401 authentication, and it was an authenticate negotiate response. But the server didn't like what was being sent, and this is that require extended protection check. So we can see adfs.welshgeek.net. We've got the Kerberos token. We provided it to the server, but because Firefox specifically, and also I'm on a Mac, the extended mode protection isn't functioning. So let's try it with the native browser. I expect the same thing to happen. adfs.welshgeek.net. If I can type /adfs ls idp initiated sign on. Let's sign into this page, and I get prompted for the credentials again. Now, of course, I could enter my credentials here, but it's not what we want. And what that means from a Zscaler app perspective, and again, I've automated the sign in here. I get prompted for the username here as well, because this is just using the embedded browser, and it's the embedded browser that's not supporting this extended protection check. So let's just exit that a second, and let's come back over to the ADFS server. So what we're going to do is we're going to set a property. We're going to change it from require, and we're going to change it to allow. Let's stop ADFS SRV. And allow extended protection mode token check set to allow is the default setting. Require is obviously the most secure. It's saying basically it'll only work with Windows machines with Internet Explorer which are properly configured to support the extended protection check. Whereas allow says it's kind of opportunistic. If the browser and the client and the workstation support it, then ADFS will do the extended protection checks and make sure that there's nothing untoward. So let's start ADFS SRV. Okay, my ADFS server is back up and running. So let's go back to this and go to the IDP initiated sign-on page now. You'll see we've automatically signed in. The credential is already there. Let's just sign out and close the browser down just to double check that's okay. Klist purge. Let's clear those credentials. K-destroy minus A, klist. Okay, let's re-init the Kerberos token. So we've got the ticket granting ticket now. Let's go ahead and start it up with Safari, IDP initiated sign on, sign into this site, and I get signed in automatically. Klist, all good. So let's go back to the Firefox and go to the IDP initiated sign on page for that. I can sign in. Oops. Let's sign out from the web server. Let's go back. I can now sign into the web server. So all the Kerberos tickets are being presented and I automatically sign into the server. So if I now go and start the Zscaler app and sign in, all of those things are transparent, which is exactly what we want. We want to be able to deploy Zscaler app transparently. Zscaler app is using the embedded browser from the workstation. And if the embedded browser on the workstation and the workstation itself is properly part of the domain, and we can do the lookup, both a forward and reverse lookup on the managed service account, the computer account, and obviously everything as it exists in DNS, then transparent sign-on should work as part of ADFS. So I hope that was useful.